Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're cracking open a really fascinating historical text. We're going to explore the world of Arnica Montana, which you might also know as Leopard's Bane.
That's right. And our source material for this particular dive is some key excerpts from William Boericke's classic homeopathic Materia Medica. It's a dense text, often quite surprising. It lays out the characteristics and uses of various substances from, the perspective of that specific system of knowledge.
And our mission today is pretty simple. We want to unpack this specific entry on Arnica. We'll pull out the most important insights, those really striking details, and help you understand what this historical text actually says about Arnica Montana.
Yeah, we want to go beyond just like listing symptoms. We're trying to grasp the unique perspective it offers, extracting the core themes that seem to define Arnica in this source.
And then we'll dive into how those themes show up across different parts of the body, all according to Boericke, of course.
Exactly.
Okay, let's dive in then. If you had to sum it up, what's the primary association for Arnica in this text? What's the first thing that, jumps out?
Overwhelmingly, it's linked to conditions that resemble injuries. Things like falls, blows, contusions, physical trauma.
So the immediate aftermath, like you fall down, you get a bruise.
Absolutely, that's the core. But the text also makes this interesting point. It suggests that even a remote injury, something that happened ages ago, can seem to be the underlying cause of trouble now.
Ah, right. So it's not just the fresh bruise.
Exactly. It's about the lingering effects, or maybe a predisposition left by past physical trauma.
That's a really key distinction this source is making. What else does it link Arnica to generally? Any other big themes?
Well, it's connected to septic conditions. It's described almost as preventing pus formation, a prophylactic of pus infection, it says. And it mentions putrid phenomena, which, suggests a tendency towards decay or tissue breakdown. It's also associated with the effects of overuse, like strains, and a disposition towards congestion, particularly cerebral congestion. And according to this text, it acts best in individuals described as plethoric.
Plethoric, what does that mean exactly?
Basically, those of a full-blooded or robust constitution. Think hardy, maybe easily flushed.
Got it. Okay, now here's where it gets really vivid for me, the core sensation described. This pervasive feeling of being sore, lame, bruised. The text says the limbs and body ache as if beaten, joints feel as if sprained. And that detail that always sticks with me, the bed feels too hard.
Oh yeah, that specific detail about the bed, it really captures the essence of this soreness, doesn't it? It highlights how deeply this bruised sensation is felt. I mean, even against something meant for comfort.
Exactly.
What's also fascinating is the marked effect the text attributes to arnica on the blood and the venous system. It's described as inducing stasis. That's a kind of stagnation or sluggish flow, which leads directly to ecchymosis.
Yeah.
Those unmistakable black and blue spots and hemorrhages. It speaks to a sort of relaxation or fragility of the blood vessels.
So you're literally seeing the bruising effect right there on the skin. The text also mentions a tendency towards low-grade fever states and issues with tissue healing.
Yeah, like abscesses that don't mature properly.
Yeah.
Within this system's view, that incomplete process is seen as a sign of a weak or inadequate vital reaction needed for healing.
Interesting.
It's also listed here as a muscular tonic. And intriguingly, the source extends the concept of trauma beyond just the physical. It connects arnica to traumatism of grief, remorse, or sudden realization of financial loss.
Wow, okay. Now that's a really powerful connection this text makes. How does Boericke seem to view that relationship between physical and, emotional bruising? Does the text give any clues as to why these very different experiences might be grouped together under Arnica?
Well, it suggests that within this framework, these different forms of shock or injury, physical blow, deep grief, the shock of financial ruin, they can somehow manifest in similar ways in the body's overall state, leading to that same underlying feeling of being bruised or damaged, kind of shattered.
So it's treating the impact of the event, regardless of its nature.
Exactly. As creating a specific kind of disruption in the system.
That provides a really interesting lens, doesn't it? For reading the rest of the descriptions, what other general associations are listed? I see neuralgia.
Yeah, neuralgias originating in disturbances of the pneumogastric nerve, rheumatism of muscular and tendinous tissue, especially back and shoulders, also an aversion to tobacco, and conditions like influenza, thrombosis, and hematocelite are mentioned.
It covers quite a range.
It does, but it consistently seems to tie back to these states linked to injury, strain, or some kind of disruption in flow.
Okay, that gives us the foundational ideas then. That core bruise sensation, the link to trauma, physical and emotional, and the impact on blood and tissue repair as seen in this system. Let's explore how this central theme shows up in the specifics.
Yeah.
Across different body systems, let's look for patterns and those particularly striking details the source includes. Maybe start with the mind.
Okay, the mind. In the mind, the text describes a state marked by a fear of touch, or even someone approaching, a kind of withdrawal. There's also this peculiar description, being unconscious, but still able to answer correctly when spoken to before, relapsing back into unconsciousness.
Huh, that's very specific.
It is. Indifference is mentioned, inability for sustained effort, moroseness, even delirium.
Sounds like a mind really reeling from an impact, perhaps.
Exactly. There's nervousness and oversensitivity, and that paradoxical statement says there's nothing the matter with him.
Right, even when clearly unwell.
Yeah, a denial of the injured state, maybe tied to that desire to be left alone. Agoraphobia is listed too, and it's specifically linked in this source to mental strain or shock.
Okay, let's see how this pattern plays out physically. Moving up to the head.
The head, described as feeling hot with cold body. That ties back to the blood flow issues we mentioned earlier, right?
Makes sense.
There's confusion, sensitivity of the brain, sharp or pinching pains, a sense of the scalp feeling contracted, and even mention of a cold spot on the forehead.
Weird. And chronic vertigo.
Yep, where objects whirl around, especially when walking. Another symptom you could potentially link to the impact of trauma or some kind of internal disruption.
Okay, how about the eyes?
In the eyes, the source lists diplopia, that's double vision, often linked here to trauma, paralysis, or retinal hemorrhage. And that same bruised, sore feeling appears again, but specifically after close work or, visually demanding tasks.
So the effort of seeing feels like a physical strain itself, like a visual bruising.
Precisely. The text notes a need to keep the eyes open, and dizziness if you close them. Suggests difficulty relaxing them after strain, maybe.
And ears.
Ears get noises, linked here to a rush of blood to the head. Also shooting pains, and even bleeding from the ears. Dullness of hearing after a concussion is listed, and that familiar pain in the cartilages as if bruised.
There it is again.
The nose. Nose description includes bleeding after fits of coughing, noting it's often dark fluid and a sore, cold feeling inside the nose.
Okay. Now the mouth and face section has some really unique details, I remember.
It really does. For the mouth, there's fetid breath, dryness, a bitter taste, and most memorably, taste as from bad eggs.
That's incredibly specific. You wouldn't forget that.
You wouldn't. It certainly points to the level of detailed observation in these kinds of texts. Soreness of the gums after tooth extraction is mentioned, and empyema of the maxillary sinus, that's pus in the sinus cavity.
And the face itself?
It's described as sunken, yet paradoxically, it can appear very red. Also heat in the lips and herpes.
Okay, moving down to the digestive system, the stomach. What specific picture does the source paint here?
Well, there are distinct cravings and aversions. A longing for vinegar, but a distaste for milk and meat. And canine hunger, like intense, almost insatiable hunger.
What alongside that hunger? Vomiting of blood, pain during eating.
Yeah, and a feeling of being full, really quickly repletion, it calls it, coupled with loathing, oppressive gas, pressure like a stone. And another truly odd sensation, feeling as if stomach were passing against spine.
Whoa, that's descriptive.
Isn't it? Plus, fetid vomiting. It's a combination of seemingly contradictory states and these very specific, unpleasant sensations. The text connects these digestive disturbances back to this underlying state.
And the abdomen.
For the abdomen, it details stitches under the ribs, distension, offensive gas flatus, and sharp thrusting pains.
Okay. Stool and urine symptoms. Sounds like more unpleasantness.
Pretty much. Straining and tenesmus and diarrhea. The stool itself is described vividly. Offensive, brown, bloody, putrid, involuntary. And looking like brown yeast.
Brown yeast. Lovely.
Quite. The text notes the need to lie down after every stool. Lists diarrhea associated with consumption tuberculosis, basically which is worse, lying on the left side.
Yeah.
And dysenteric stools, accompanied by muscular pains.
And for urine.
Retention from overexertion is mentioned. Dark brick red sediment. Vesical tenesmus, bladder straining, and painful urination.
Let's look at conditions specific to females in the source. What does it cover?
It covers conditions related to labor, specifically mentioning bruised parts afterwards and violent after pains. Uterine hemorrhage from mechanical injury after coition is noted.
Okay, direct injury link there.
Yes, also sore nipples and mastitis breast inflammation from injury. And another really unique sensation described, feeling as if fetus were lying crosswise.
Huh. Again, directly linking physical trauma or mechanical issues to these specific manifestations. How about the respiratory system?
The cough characteristics are detailed. Coughs, depending on a cardiac issue, coughs that are paroxysmal coming in spasms, occurring at night or during sleep, worse with exercise. A dry cough from a tickling sensation low in the trachea is noted. And interestingly, a cough produced by weeping and lamenting.
Ah, linking the physical symptom back to emotional expression again.
Exactly. Hoarseness from overuse of the voice, a raw, sore feeling in the morning, bloody expectoration, dyspnea with hemoptysis, that's difficulty breathing with spitting blood.
And the chest pain?
Crucially, chest pain where all the bones and cartilages feel painful, reinforcing that pervasive bruise sensation yet again.
Wow.
The text also lists a violent spasmodic cough with facial herpes, whooping cough where the child cries before the cough begins.
Interesting timing.
Yeah. Acute tonsillitis and pleurodynia pain in the chest wall muscles are also included.
Okay, the heart section focuses on angina pectoris.
Yes, and it notes the pain is especially severe in elbow of left arm.
A very specific referred pain description.
It is. Stitches in the heart, a feeble and irregular pulse, cardiac dropsy that's fluid buildup due to heart issues with distressing difficulty breathing, and extremities that are distended, feel bruised and sore. Fatty heart and hypertrophy enlargement are also mentioned.
It's really striking how even heart issues are described using language that echoes that core bruised or sore theme, isn't it? Or links back to vascular problems.
It shows how consistently the text applies this underlying concept across so many different systems. It's quite systematic in that way.
Speaking of that core feeling in the extremity section, that fear of being touched or approached is repeated. Really emphasizes the physical hypersensitivity.
Definitely. Pain in the back and limbs as if bruised or beaten, a sprained and dislocated feeling, and soreness after overexertion are absolutely central here.
And there's that sensation again.
Everything on which he lies seems too hard.
Yeah, can't get comfortable.
Seems like it. Deathly coldness of the forearm is noted, inability to walk erect due to bruised pain in the pelvic region, and a description of rheumatism that apparently begins low down and works its way upwards.
Okay. On the skin, the manifestations seem like direct visual representations of the core theme.
Absolutely. Described simply as black and blue. Also itching, burning, eruptions like small pimples or crops of small boils, ecchymosis, bruising, bed sores, and acne indorata, a kind of hardened acne characterized by symmetry and distribution.
It's that symmetry is another one of those specific details the source felt was important to note. Let's look at sleep.
Okay, sleep, characterized by restlessness and sleeplessness when overtired, or, on the other hand, a heavy comatose drowsiness. Awakening with a hot head is mentioned too.
But the most profound details here seem to be the dream content.
Oh, definitely. The text specifies dreams of death, mutilated bodies, anxious and terrible, and horrors in the night.
Yikes. That's intense.
Incredibly intense and disturbing images, yeah. It suggests that trauma resonates deeply into the subconscious mind, according to the source anyway. Involuntary stools during sleep are also listed.
Right. Finally, the fever symptoms.
Febrile symptoms are described as closely related to typhoid, with shivering over the whole body. The temperature pattern is noted as paradoxical. Heat and redness of the head, but the rest of the body is cool.
So hot head, cold body.
Right, an internal heat sensation, but cold feet and hands. Nightly sour spots are also present.
So, okay. This source provides this massive catalog of symptoms, ranging from physical aches and bruises to specific digestive upsets, respiratory issues, even psychological states and dreams, all connected under the umbrella of arnica.
It's the sheer range, yeah.
Yep.
But unified by this underlying theme of the body's reaction to trauma and its consequences, whether physical or, otherwise, it really highlights the system's approach, trying to find a central signature for a substance.
Let's look quickly at a few contextual details the source provides. Like, what makes the symptoms described here worse or better? The modalities section.
Okay. According to this text, the symptoms are made worse by the least touch, by motion, by rest.
Wait, by rest? That seems counterintuitive.
It does, right. But it maybe reinforces the idea that the pain is just there even when you're still.
Okay. What else makes it worse?
By wine and by damp cold.
And what brings relief, according to this source?
Lying down, or specifically lying with the head low.
Okay. The text also places arnica within a network of other substances, listing relationships, things like antidotes.
Yeah, like camphor is listed as an antidote. Specific connections, like to Vitex trifolia, which is sometimes called Indian arnica. Complementary remedies, like aconite or ipecac. and comparison remedies ones with similar symptom pictures, maybe Bellus perennis or Rustox.
Right. This shows how the text situates arnica within its broader therapeutic landscape, suggesting other substances that might interact with it or cover similar ground within this system.
Exactly. It's building that whole picture.
And finally, the source gives dosage information, suggests a third to 30th potency, and includes a practical instruction about local tincture application.
Yes, that it should never be applied hot, or actually at all when abrasions or cuts are present.
That's an important practical note.
It is. It implies that, in this system's view, applying the raw or diluted substance to already broken skin might interfere with or complicate the body's response, contrasting with its use on, say, unbroken bruised tissue.
Wow. Okay. We've really deep dived into this historical description of Arnica Montana from Boericke's text. The range of physical and even psychological states connected is just remarkable, isn't it? All seemingly flowing from that core concept of being bruised, sore, affected by trauma or disruption.
It really is. From that pervasive physical feeling that makes even your bed feel too hard, to the visual sign of black and blue spots, right through to the deep emotional and mental echoes of injury and shock like grief or financial loss. That consistent thread of impact seems to underpin many of the described symptoms in this particular source.
It really makes you pause and consider the perspective of the author here, doesn't it? What stands out to you when you look at this whole constellation of symptoms and connections laid out in the text?
For me, I think it's those incredibly specific and vivid descriptions, sensations that feel so far removed from just a physical bruise, like the taste is from bad eggs.
Yeah, the
Or,
summer.
or the feeling of the stomach passing against spine, or those intensely dark dreams of, mutilated bodies.
Right. This source presents a world where such disparate physical symptoms and even profound psychological states are viewed as interconnected, as expressions of a singular underlying issue, often kicked off by impact or strain. It kind of challenges us to think about how a historical text like this came to associate such unique sensory experiences and mental states with the physical reality of being bruised.
Yeah.
It leaves you contemplating the underlying logic and the observational detail, I suppose, that would lead to such a description in the first place. It certainly provides a unique window into a different way of viewing the body and the impact of experience on our physical and mental state as captured in this historical text. A lot to think about.